Welcome to the Church of Jesus Christ. There's a specific action that can provoke either good or bad. And this action shows up in the Word, specifically, by the way, but it shows up many times in the Word. But specifically, and that's one of the spots we're going to go to today, it's captured in warning form by Jesus Christ. Again, only a precursor to what you're, I hope, going to enjoy in moments. But to be clear, the same action can provoke either good or bad, determined by the motivation behind the action. Our theme today, looking back. I found a few quotes when looking back can be good. So I'm going to share those with you. I wrote those down, so forgive me for not being able to make eye contact. I'm going to read a couple of those. You live life looking forward. You understand life looking back. Another one. Wisdom is looking back at your life and seeing everything as part of a perfect plan needed. Nothing by accident, nothing by mistake. Wisdom is seeing God in all things. And a third, if you will. Looking back, we see with great clarity. Things that once appeared as difficulties now reveal themselves to be life's blessings. Not planning to do so. I even made reference to COVID. That was such a challenge for all of us, and we can now reflect on it, given all of us as benefactors of one another, that we can count it a blessing as well. That's how a spiritual individual looks back. Candace and I travel back this week. Later this week, we will be traveling back to Palm Beach County, where I grew up, where I graduated high school, 50 years ago. And so we're going back there to see some of the people I graduated with. And I have spent the last couple weeks, because I did not decide to do this. In fact, we had no real intention of doing this. And it came almost spontaneously. And since then, for the last 2 weeks, maybe three, I don't recall, I have spent some time looking back. 2 or 3 or 4 times over the last couple days, people have talked to me about reflecting and looking back on things. I kept thinking, is this where God's taking us? So I'm going to go with this and believe it is. So in my looking back, I found one thing quite interesting, which is those that I knew, the acquaintances that certainly they were my friends at the time. So long later, they were wonderful acquaintances as life has moved so many of us so far apart. And I keep thinking they knew me pre-conversion. And I wonder who I was as I look back. And I wonder, I think I recall, but I have no confidence that that's an accurate assessment. And more importantly is not who I thought I was. More importantly is those that were with me at the time. I wonder who they saw me as. And so that's what I've been thinking a lot about. Unimportant, quite honestly, but it's certainly what I've reflected upon. So I find myself looking back. And it's been for me a very healthy mental journey. But there is a different way of looking back. And it can be, the results can be harmful. And so the scripture we will be going to in just moments is a time Jesus speaks of a situation, specific account about looking back. Another anecdote. A very dear friend of mine received an outreach on Facebook early on when Facebook was just coming into our lives, if you will, at least in kind of fullness when everyone seemed to have caught on to what Facebook was. seems our generation might be the only generation still clinging, by the way, to this format. But be that as it may, when it first came out, this dear friend of mine had a high school, one of their closest friends from high school, reach out um, in a nice way that we all kind of, when we reconnect with someone, it's nice. Within moments of the interaction with him, she was invited to share her personal phone number. And with the idea that this will give us a better chance to talk freer and reconnect. Um, and to be sure, they were, again, as I described my own life, they were far apart. No impending threat of living close by, and yet she made a decision because she didn't quite feel comfortable sharing that phone number. They had been best of friends, pure intentions, best of friends. But as we all know, best of friends can often develop into something more. And her thoughts were she was happily married and didn't feel that that was a good decision. And so, very gently, very wisely said, "Oh, this is good enough. We can connect. No insult intended. We can connect on Facebook and continue on." As it turned out, it never developed after that, and so she felt that it was a good decision. She felt that was a confirmation, and maybe she came to a conclusion that that type of looking back. Um, can, not necessarily was going to, but can develop into something less than good and maybe even bad ultimately. Sometimes looking back actually can lead to looking forward. I hope you understand what I mean by that. Um, Maybe it develops, in our own minds away from as we look back and then look forward to even a relationship, friendship that may develop into something more, with no real thought of consequence on one part. Maybe thoughts of what could have been. Maybe that develops into what should have been, and so the intentions, while maybe innocent at the time, can develop into something more. And so this decision made probably proved to be a wise decision. And judging no one in this situation, we can conclude without judgment, just generally observing that this can be the way a natural person might look back, looking back with the ideas of something that could be from that. So we're going to go to a couple tremendous stories. I'm probably going to tell more than I'm going to read, because the two areas I'm going to go to are both very long. I'm going to give you the chapters because you may want to read those. I fear that I am seeding opinions, and these may show up as Tuesday nighters. I am not making a case for that, but the chapters are good, and that sometimes that happens when we do a Sunday within the week or three. I'll get suggestions, but I think you're going to find these chapters are just that good. Again, I'm not making a case for, just telling you, if you take the risk and read them, you might get caught like I have this week. So before I go to those, I just want to give you almost like a little precursor verse that I heard when I first came in the church, and I always was intrigued by it, and it inspired good behavior in me, thinking maybe this could come to be. Hebrews 13, the second verse. This is not one of the two studies that we're going to do today. Hebrews 13, 2 says this: "Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares." Now, when that was told to me, I heard countless testimonies of the appearance of angels in people's lives. It was fabulous. And so it made quite an impression on me. But I never tied that verse to another piece of scripture. So we learn in this that we can entertain angels. And I hope we learn by the end of today, we can also entertain the thoughts of the natural man. But more beautifully, we can also entertain the thoughts of the spiritual man. Both of those opportunities to be led by the spiritual man or be led by the natural man are given to us almost in thoughts all the time. All the time. That's what choice and decision probably is predicated upon. Okay, let's go to it. So the first chapter we're going to read is Genesis 19, with the assignment growing, if you will, because I'm going to tell you that we are going to meet two angels, and they appear in also Genesis 18 in conversations with Abraham, about Sodom and Gomorrah. Incredible interactions. So if you wish, you might want to read Genesis 18. And if you wish, you may want to follow up on Genesis 19 that I'm going to go to now. So in Genesis 19, these two angels are coming into the city of Sodom, and Lot appears to be sitting at the gate or standing at the gate of the city and meets up with these two men who appear to be men and are actually angels, and they have some dialogue. And Lot invites them to his house. And they say, no, we're just going to stay in the streets, I think is how the word says that. But Lot continues to press and ask if they would stay with him, and they do. And again, maybe even to one of those verses we read, one of those quotes we read earlier, all things with purpose. So they come to the house, and soon and very soon, the door knocks, and the men some men of the town have come to the door of Lot and are questioning, and they want these men outside with them. And Lot has to stiff arm them and keep them away, knowing that they are intending danger for his guests. Now, there's much more to read in this. I'm just trying to do kind of an overview. There's some back and forth, none of which I feel comfortable in this forum to read. Again, in another forum, we may talk about some of the intricacies and the oddities of the negotiations that Lot gets into with the men of the city. But the end of all of this is they are not allowed into the house. They are kept outside the house, and the two angels strike the city folk blind. Okay. There's a lot of fill in, and if you want to read more than that, please feel free to. And Lot is given some options now that the doors are shut, now that they're safely inside, now that we see why these two men came to the city. And again, if you read 18, you'll find that they were coming to take care of some finalization of the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. And so the angels, while speaking to Lot inside the safety of his home, they give him this final warning. It is impending. This is not something that's going to happen down the road. This is going to happen very quickly. You need to leave now. In the morning, when the sun comes up, you need to be gone, is what they tell him. Lot, again, tries to negotiate. And again, if you read 18, you'll read some great negotiations with Abraham and the angels as well. I find I shouldn't be smiling so broadly, but I do find the man's ability to negotiate or attempt to negotiate with God and God's messengers very human, very much who we all are. And so Lot does the same thing. He's trying to negotiate even time at this point. Yeah, I need a little more time. And they tell him, not only do you have to leave, you have to leave quickly. They ask about his extended family. He has two daughters. They ask about son-in-laws and whether or not they'd be willing to go. And Lot finds some pushback there. So Lot is going to leave the city, leave everything behind, take his wife and his two daughters, and what Lot ends up negotiating in his age, because this sounded difficult to him, is he said, I can't run as far as you're asking me to run up into the hills. I'll tire. And they said, well, there's a city. And they named this city Zor. And they said, go to this city. That will not be consumed, but everything else will be gone. So again, I'm telling this story rather than reading it. I'm sending you to 18 and 19 if you wish to read these. So they run. And I think you're ahead of me. I hope you're ahead of me already by way of knowledge. So they leave the city, and the messengers called down the wrath of God upon Sodom and Gomorrah because of their condition, the condition of mankind at the time. And the city is consumed. I think this is one of the first places we read about fire and brimstone. The city is consumed. And I'm now going to read you a verse or two. Then the Lord, I'm in verse 24, 25, and 26 of the 19th chapter of Genesis. And that's all I'm going to read to you from this chapter. Then the Lord rained down upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. He overthrew those cities and all the plain, all the surrounding area, the plain, and all the inhabitants of the cities, that which grew upon the ground. And, excuse me, and that which grew upon the ground. Verse 26, powerful, the part probably most of us remember. But his wife looked back from behind him. Lot was in front of her. She was lagging behind. Maybe they make that mention so that we realize the lingering may have been intentional, even in and of itself, commentary only, not with knowledge, but I believe that may be an indication that she did not go willingly, maybe. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. How? Now, there's great conversation to be had about this act. There's great conversation to have about the intentions of looking back. Again, I told you earlier, we can look back as spiritually minded, or we can look back as naturally minded. I do not believe that she would have been punished with spiritual intentions, and so we conclude that she looked back with natural intentions, all that she left behind, those that she left behind. Maybe she was caught up in some of even the reasoning that the city was taken down, but most importantly, she looked back. And sometimes what we're learning is looking back can be the cause of great troubles. I've already made the defense for looking back, reflecting for good reasons. So the act of looking back is not the sin. The sin is why one is looking back. Why one is looking at a time period, why one is looking at a city, why one is looking at things or stuff or whatever they want. And later we're going to read a verse in the New Testament that speaks of stuff and going to get their stuff. So maybe that's also what she was looking at. I'm going to run now to Luke 17. Again, I'm not going to read much, but I am going to tell stories. This entire chapter 1 through 37, or actually 32 is where I'm headed. 1 through is a great chapter, and it's broken into paragraphs, so it's much like the New Testament has presented before, where it breaks Jesus Christ's thoughts into different paragraphs. And so there are all-star paragraphs in the 17th chapter of Luke. I hope you'll enjoy it. So up until the 20th verse, Jesus Christ is just really providing wisdom to his disciples and to the hearers of his words. He's not just speaking to his 12, but to congregations who have gathered to see him. There's a healing involved, a fabulous healing involved in those first 19 verses as well. And then the Pharisees called to him and asked him some questions, and he answered those questions in the 20 through 25. And then he waxes deep, if you will. He begins to talk about what he will suffer, and that it will come suddenly. And because we're coming from Genesis 19, I hope you're putting that together to understand that much like that fire raining down, it will come suddenly. And it can come suddenly even in our lives today. But he's speaking of a specific time. Understand, the story of Sodom and Gomorrah is estimated because there is no definitive time frame for Sodom and Gomorrah. Gomorrah, but it's estimated to have been some 2,100 or so years before Christ. So 2,000 years later, which is 2,000 years back for us, Jesus Christ is referencing the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. And he in his preparing to get to Sodom and Gomorrah, he takes us to Noah in the days of Noah. And he does this beautiful poetic interweaving of activities taking place concurrently as the finalization of lives are just moments away. That death is impending and people don't even know it. He said, as it was in the day of Noah, it was in the day of Sodom and Gomorrah, that people were doing what they did on any other day. And that's what got them into the mess that they created, both in Sodom and Gomorrah and in the time of Noe. And he later clarifies Noah in the word. Again, you'll have to read this if you'll want to know that reference. So I'm now going to jump to the 28th verse of Luke 17. And that's where he says, likewise in the days of Lot, they did eat, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they built. They were living life and living it poorly and making bad decisions. But nothing was different on this particular Tuesday from the day before, that Monday before, or any Tuesday before that. He was saying, this is just the life they were living with no thought of spiritual life in their hearts. But that same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. These people who are living their lives destroyed immediately, writes Luke, capturing the words of Jesus Christ. Even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. In that day, he which shall be upon the housetop and his stuff in the house, let him not come down and take it away. I'm going to say it differently. Let him not look back. That's what Jesus Christ is warning. As you're on your rooftop and it's time to flee, don't look back. Don't go back to get your stuff. Don't go back to go and take with you what has caused your fall. You see, we look back at things that may have created problems. This young person I told you about who decided not to get in any kind of involvement or engagement by way of sharing phone numbers may have avoided something very serious and decided, I'm not looking back. I'm not looking back to high school and bringing it into my present. And that's what Jesus Christ was warning here. Again, I'm going to read that 31 so I can bring you 32 as our key verse. In that day, he which shall be upon his housetop and his stuff in the house, let him not come down and take it. And he that is in the field, let him likewise not return back. Don't look back naturally. And then we come to this powerful verse in 32. Luke 17:32 says this, remember Lot's wife. Do your own deep dive into what motivated her looking back. Understand that there, by the grace of God, might go any one of us. When given the choice of what to decide, what decisions to make, it's so tempting to look back. Physically, emotionally, mentally, and who knows where that glance can go. Can it lead us to lust? Can it lead us to thoughts of all natural things, possessions, things that have stirred up all the wrong thoughts and desires? I told you earlier, a glance back, a look back in a spiritual way can keep us on the straight and narrow. I often speak of decisions made before the spiritual man was driving me and the natural man had full reign over my decision making and some of the foolish things I did. I want to always remember those. I want to always look back at those so that I don't look forward and see those in my future. I want to remember the mistakes I made so that looking back serves me, empowers me, reconnects me to God so that I don't reconnect to that man that I was. So that the sin is not in looking back. It's not the what we do all the time. It's why we do what we do. And so the real study today is what creates that looking back. And if it's of pure intent and it makes you stronger and drives you closer to God where all goodness comes from, then surely look back. Reflect upon who you were so that you desire to remain who you are. All of us started in a lesser than status. All of us have become something more than we ever knew we could be. Yes, men are, that they might have joy. And what that means is that we have now made better decisions that have fulfilled God's intentions for us. And so if that glance to who we were inspires us to remain who we are to the glory of God, then certainly look back. If you're looking back with desires to enjoy the things that you once enjoyed that only caused harm and pain and broke you down and got you to the place that you were crawling to God to make yourself right, don't look back at those things. Our theme today is a sober one, but one that defines the purposes of what we do. And one of the things we do is we look back. Our theme today is looking back. Might you look back and see where you began so that you praise the Lord for where you are. And that where you are inspires you to climb higher, to be better, to be closer to Him, to fulfill more of what He intends for you. Our walk with the Lord is a beautiful walk and can become even more beautiful if we draw closer to Him in every step. All honor, all glory, all praise to God. When I speak of who you are as better than who you were, that's all glory to God. So I'll say this again. I thank God for each one of you. I thank God for your connection to God Himself. I thank God for your love for His Son. And I pray that all of that continues to grow. Look back, that you might see the great distance the Lord has brought you, and that it might encourage you to go further. May the Lord bless each one of you.